Thank you, Andrews. Good morning. Thank you, His Excellency John Kali. And of course, we are graced by the presence of my other colleague ministers from the Papua New Guinea government, as well as state members and ministers of the national government, Maurice Payne, the Foreign Affairs Minister of Australia. Thank you, the Treasurers, Sam Basil, the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Soro, and of course, Minister Michael Nally, who is the Minister for Works and Implementation. I am also aware that amongst us is also one of my other Queenslander, the Honourable Ian Prentice from the Queensland Parliament, State Parliament. At this juncture, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my Prime Minister, the Honourable Marape, to be able to give me this opportunity to give these opening remarks here at this very esteemed conference. In actual fact, I had a very short preparations to make because I was coming down from the electorate when I was asked to jump on the plane and get myself to Sydney. So it is just like you now asking me to jump from the frying pan into the fire as I address you. Being a geologist, I am not much of a public speaker, but let me basically see if I can be able to get through to this occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests, firstly, I'd like to bring you the greetings from the people of Papua New Guinea. It is my privilege and honor to be representing the Honorable Prime Minister James Marape at this forum. Australia and Papua New Guinea, we go a very long way. Even prior to it predates the Second World War, and that Australia, one way or the other, had not cut the umbilical cord even at independence, and we feel that we are part and parcel of Australia. Our relationship gained momentum when it was forged during the Second World War at the Kokora Trail. Lest we forget, the Kokora history is one that makes Papua New Guinea a great friend of Australia. In Australian history, I am told, and you can correct me, that the history teachers don't teach the Australian children that Papua New Guinea jungle warriors even fought alongside the Australians and even won the war from the Japanese along the Kokora Trail. That is now past history. I'm not here to rewrite the history books, but I presume Australia has a laissez-faire attitude on Papua New Guinea on many relationship fronts. As you know, Papua New Guinea is the second largest landmass beside Australia in Oceania. Even Papua New Guinea is becoming the untapped gateway to the East Asian tigers, the emerging Asian economies. And I believe that that is where 70% of the global trade is happening. In other words, Papua New Guinea is where some of you should be located to do your business and be part of that gateway, take advantage of its gateway to the Asian community. It is about time Australia put in time and effort to defend its territories, tie the loose ends, identify the weak links, put forth strategies, or we will be somewhat reverted back to the old Kokora history. When Australia is not perfectly keen to strategize a position in the Pacific, Papua New Guinea will be forgotten, just like the Kokora Trail meet. However, Papua New Guinea must also forge new friends for its economic prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Papua New Guinea under Prime Minister Marape has a clear vision to take back Papua New Guinea. He also made a profound statement when he was in Sydney a few weeks ago addressing the Laurie Institute that he wants to make Papua New Guinea to become a donor nation in a decade. This is not impossible, ladies and gentlemen, as we as a sovereign country must have visions. On purpose, our government is diversifying our economic base so that we do not lay all our eggs in one basket. The February 2018 major structural deformations in the Ella and Southern Islands provinces greatly affected productions from oil and gas fields, as well as the closure of Porgera Goldfield, which was very expensive for an emerging nation like Papua New Guinea. The PNG government was moving away from its reliance on the extractive industries and is now focusing more on renewable resources like agriculture, fisheries, SMEs, manufacturing, industrialization, downstream processing of raw materials, etc. After 2020, I'd like to inform this forum that there'll be no more export of round logs. Papua New Guinea economy does not require a pay surplus where we bring our people to pick up fruits in Australia. Rather, Papua New Guinea requires an independent bilateral free trade agreement with Australia. Because of its landmass and connectivity to the Asian continent by both land and sea, Papua New Guinea is more strategically located than the rest of the Pacific Island countries put together. I, for one, want Australia and Papua New Guinea to tie the knot in a bilateral free trade agreement as soon as possible. Why do you think this is very important to Australian government, business, and the Australian people? By looking at the strategic location of Papua New Guinea and the vulnerability and the inadequacies it faces as a country, the Pacific needs a serious and committed leader to stand up for the Pacific and its people, to protect their environment, their water resources, their sovereignty as independent states living harmoniously. Ladies and gentlemen, I have heard through the grave one recently that the International Monetary Fund staff have recommended to the International Monetary Fund Board to include the Chinese RMB or yuan to be included in the basket of special drawing rights, currencies with the US dollar and others. If approved by the IMF board or the International Monetary Fund Board, there will be a paradigm shift in the financial and economic sector worldwide. Papua New Guinea is willing to take advantage of this paradigm shift as a country situated between Asia and the Pacific towards the American continent. But, ladies and gentlemen, there are adults that we all need to address as a sovereign state. The new government of Papua New Guinea is faced with severe macroeconomic imbalance, low productivity ratio, and a very serious structural retrogression in our public administrative systems. Though so much of our aid from Australia funded some of these expensive consultants to assist our people, we will still require structural arrangements. The fact remains, ladies and gentlemen, that the new government has inherited the country with poor fiscal regime, low or no liquidity to stimulate the economy, cumbersome public sector, and poor management of the state-owned enterprises. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, the new Marape Stevens government is looking at some form of assistance from Australian government to stabilize the PNG economy in budget support, which I believe the Australian Treasurer and my Papua New Guinea Treasurer, the Honourable Sam Basil, will be discussing or could be discussing in the forthcoming days or weeks. The specific areas of the stabilization fund would be used to do some structural adjustment to stimulate growth of the economy. We as a government very much appreciate the government and people of Australia for TAFE college systems to improve the productivity ratio of our youth and future generation. please, at this juncture, I'd like to also appeal that this must be extended to include all sectors in food processing, manufacturing, customer services, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to now highlight the partnership in curbing law and order in Papua New Guinea is also a priority of the government. The Prime Minister would like to see the strengthening and deepening of the relationship with more involvement of the Australian Federal Police in policing and the training of the policing program in Papua New Guinea. Better security creates the impetus for growth of the economy, especially in the plantation-based agricultural sector, which is now one of the drives of the Marape government to basically to be one of the main forces of driving the economy of Papua New Guinea. The new government under Honorable James Marape, who recently visited Australia, would like to see the return of the transport sector improvement program via OSAID to improve on some of the macroeconomic imbalance which I have highlighted. The Prime Minister said for us to review the health and education sector of the country to ensure we deliver standard quality health and education system to the people of Papua New Guinea. This is so that our graduates can attain Australian standard qualifications and find employment not only in Papua New Guinea but also in Australia. Let us build our technical colleges like what Australia have done to the Port Moresby Technical College to be extended to the Lay Polytech in the Marape province. At this juncture, I'm aware that of the many black people working in the mines of Australia, 9 out of 10 are Papua New Guineans. The rest could be from other parts of the world. I will not take your time, but to make it short, the following stimulus activities are being looked at to revive the economy. PNG needs foreign direct investments to stimulate it, to create its economic stimulus. The Papua New Guinea LNG will be developed after reviewing some parts of the agreement, and of course we are looking forward when Wafi Gold Pool will be progressed to production. These new projects will stimulate the resource sector. The government is also looking at reviewing the benefit arrangements. For past resource projects have not paid sustainable dividend to the state. As such, the new government is looking at reviewing the fiscal regimes in those resource sectors agreements for a win-win solution to both the investor and the state. In the past, our fiscal policies focused on the upstream part of the industry, but now we are now also moving on to look at the downstream, including downstream processing. The new government is looking at sustainable wealth creation with our resource, with the creation of more wealth. We can convert that wealth to a good GDP growth rate. Fundamentally, we are in the process of developing the framework to retain at least 30% of our gold that we export every year. We are talking about adjusting the way we do business in most of the sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, gold is fundamentally seen as the only surviving fiat compared to the US dollar. Seeing the economic trends around the world and the decision pending by the International Monetary Fund Board, Papua New Guinea is the 13th largest gold producer among Australia and others. We would like to create our own wealth. As such, legislative amendments will be procured to develop our own gold standards and probably peg the kina to the gold rather than pegging the kina to the US dollar. Ladies and gentlemen, to attract more foreign direct investment, like on Manus Island as a special economic zone, our cabinet recently approved the creation of special economic zones, special vehicles to stimulate economic growth. This will be regulated under a special economic zone authority to ensure such SEZs deliver the mandates. We are putting together a legislative framework for special economic zone which was lacking for the last 20 years. The Special Economic Zone Act will go before Parliament in October of this year. That will give rise to the development of its geographical area as special economic zones administered by a special economic zone authority. These special economic zones are to attract foreign direct investment with global and regional value chain industries having one-stop shop regimes. We will give fiscal and customs and operational incentives up to 10 years. The legislation will ensure we protect the existing businesses, that they must not be also affected. Currently, Papua New Guinea had declared special economic zones in places, if I may, like the EU Special Economic Zone, of which a presentation will be made this afternoon. We have the Vanimo Free Trade Zone in the West Sepik Province, the Sepik Special Agricultural Park, Manu Special Economic Zone for tourism, the Bana in the Autonomous Region of Bougainville Free Trade Zone, and of course several agricultural parks that have been identified and declared in the Marape, Eastern Islands, and Western Islands provinces. The ongoing Paga Hill Special Economic Zone, especially for tourism in the city of Port Moresby, National Capital District. The Natsab Industrial Park, which is a special economic zone that's declared outside of Lae. And lastly, but not the least, is the Pacific Marine Industrial Zone in Madang for fisheries. The other areas of investment where Australia and New Zealand are involved in includes the agricultural sector. We would like to see more sustainable investment into the agricultural sector. To restructure the agricultural sector, we are looking at establishing a revolving fund, just like the Australian Farmers Bank, the Bendigo Bank, with more emphasis to the cooperative societies. The cooperative societies model will work in Papua New Guinea due to the family units, clan, and tribal groups based owning land and resources. Let us at this juncture not forget that we in Papua New Guinea are among the first people in the world to farm or agriculturalists, has been discovered by archaeologists at Cook outside of Montagan City, which dated 9,000 years ago or 7,000 BC. A workable model is already in progress for the development of the cooperative society model by my ministry and the Ministry of Agriculture. Australia, through Grow Asia, should work with the Department of Commerce and Industry of Papua New Guinea to identify economic and business risk involved in developing agricultural ventures. It requires cooperative societies more than private equity investors. Or private equity investors can organize cooperatives and regional groups for the development of agriculture. In the 1960s and 1970s, Port Moresby, Lae, Montagan, and Rabaul could find Australian products and services. The small to medium enterprises like restaurants were run by Australians. Today, there is no visibility of an Australian cuisine or restaurant. Neither we find an Australian small to medium-sized enterprise. I do not know for what reason there is no visibility of Australia, yet we talk about Australia-Papua New Guinea relationships. Is it because of Australia's investment in the mega industries and projects in Papua New Guinea? Or could they take and look further than that? One major foreign direct investment is the $335 million US energy project that will be funded by the governments of the United States of America, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan to power up Papua New Guinea, which will improve the livelihood of our people. Standards of the people. For energy is essential for creating cottage industries and SMEs in the regional towns and villages of Papua New Guinea. After all, energy, as I've said, is one of the most important and essential enabler for any economic project in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are going to change and strengthen our relationship, we need to start with Australians coming out of the comfort zones to involve in our SMEs and medium-sized enterprises in partnership and collaborations with Papua New Guineans. And Papua New Guinea reciprocates visa on arrival for business, travelers, for Papua New Guinea citizens, and becoming proactive in the development of Papua New Guinea and Pacific, because more and more business people of Papua New Guinea are traveling to Asia more than Australia. It is only fair that I would like to invite Australian mining and exploration companies to invest more in Papua New Guinea. After all, we have the best geological address that you can find anywhere in the world. Given our geotectonic settings, we are host to some of the biggest gold and copper deposits, including the undeveloped Wafi gold pool. We now need to focus on the exploration sector because that is the underlying key to our mining industry. As today, it takes an average of 26 years from exploration to mine development. I have discussions with my brother, the Honorable Minister Johnson Tukey, Minister for Mining, who will be introducing amendments to the Mining Act of 1992. This will be done so that I can assure you that it will be done in the best interest of all parties, including the state, investors, and all other stakeholders. In conclusion, I would like to inform investors and potential investors that much talked about the FIRA bill will be brought to Cabinet for approval before presenting it to Parliament. This will be done as soon as possible once the letter of clearance is given by our state solicitor. I can assure you all that it is not draconian as many people may view, but it is done in such a way that it is a win-win solution for everyone, and it is conducive for investments in that sector. There is a clear demarcation of what are reserved lists of businesses for Papua New Guineans only, and it differentiates from the SMEs, of which it requires partners to inject capital or skills or whatever level. The law will also provide the thresholds for business and activities, especially in the SME space for joint venture partnership. So there is no need for people to be worried about. On this note, I wish to thank you all, and I look forward to the success over the next 2 days of this conference. Thank you, and may God bless you all.